Hockey Picks and Bets, presented by Prize Picks, here on the Mayo Media Network. I am Matt Moody, joined as always by my buddy, DJ Mitchell. We're talking about 6 games in the NHL here on Thursday. DJ, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing real well. I mean, I've kind of been solely focusing over on DraftKings on the lines, not lines, I guess, the slates, and just been crushing lately. We have a little bit of sweat going on tonight as we're recording on Wednesday. Don't want to get too deep in the weeds on it. Just need Rantanen to have a quick hat trick and I'll win 10K. Not a big deal. Definitely, just to start it off, the Oshie, TJ Oshie, I had him 100%. It may have been narrative driven as well as
what a
seemed
story.
Like a really good play.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Just really, it's not about me winning any money. It's more about him and, the heroic hat trick effort after the passing of his father, who was obviously instrumental in his everything. So, great story there. That game in general was just an amazing watch. I texted some of my buddies that aren't into hockey. I know they were out for Cinco de Mayo. I was like, hey, if you're at a bar, turn on that Rangers game. It's on national TV. It should be really fun. And I was getting some texts like, oh my God, this is a crazy one. So for people first time watching hockey, maybe not good for getting used to that because you're not going to get that very often. But we can get to this slate. Anything you want to start us off with though?
None. I mean, not really about Wednesday. Wednesday, I feel like was a good night of hockey though. So looking forward to another good one here on Thursday. Before we do that, I do want to talk to you about Prize Picks, the title sponsor of this show. So show them some support, show us some support. Head on over to prizepicks.com and sign up using promo code MMN. Prize Picks is a really sort of revolutionary type of fantasy game. So really, I think you should be checking it out. What you do over there is you look at their board and it's real simple. You make 5 selections based on the over or unders for given players across any sport, and you can win up to 10 times your money. So for example, in the NHL, you'll see a bunch of players listed. You'll get 3 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist, and a half point for a block shot and a shot on goal. And if your player, you take the over, the player goes over, you win. Like that's all you do. It's real simple. It's just a lot of fun. So make sure you head on over there. Use promo code MMN when you sign up, and they'll even give you an up to $100 match deposit bonus. So, DJ, we are here to talk about Thursday's 6 games in the NHL. Anything you want to cover before we get into things?
I mean, I was also going to talk about Prize Picks for a quick second. Just the one thing that I mentioned last time, and I just want to mention it again, if it's legal in your state and you're doing all this research and you're picking all these prop bets over on DraftKings where you're getting different lines, right? So let's just say, for example, you saw Rantanen 2.5 and it was like minus 200. Well, you just at least check it out over on Prize Picks where you're not having this decision like, oh, I want to be minus 200. You could just take sort of your 1, 2, 3 single shot props and look if they're there. And if they're there, you put those together, 10 extra money potentially up to if you do 5. So it's a really good way of doing it. They even have the one that I'm really excited for that it's a little bit newer. They do have, I've had it for a couple rounds, is the single, I guess, stats for golf. I think they're really interesting because your golfer, if you pick a guy that has a really high, ceiling, really low floor, they have 4 or 4.5 birdies or better as one of their stats for their board, which would be really interesting if a guy like, Bryson DeChambeau, who drives it a mile, but could, the next hole hit one out of bounds. So I think that's a really interesting way of doing it. If you really like a golfer, I know Jeff over on the Mayo Media Network is super high on Victor Hovland, so just clear jam, put that in your board first, 4.5. And he forced a bet into, I guess, fruition of Hovland to win by 3 strokes. So he's got to have at least 4.5 birdies or better to get that done. So it's a cool site. Even if it's not in your state, just go check it out. Give it a look. Things are going to be legalized more and more, and that'll be a really fun tool to keep around. And if you're jamming enough, as much as we do, you want to include every, angle and edge you can get.
Absolutely. Good point there. If you're doing all the work anyway, just check them out. So let's start things off on Thursday talking about Chicago at Carolina. Carolina, they just, slaughtered Chicago the last time. Looked like Chicago had a chance. Nope. Andrei Svechnikov said nope. And he finally hit a freaking shot prop. We're finally just like, All right, Andre, you got us. Like, it's just the Sebastian Aho show. It's the Teuvo Teravainen show. Svechnikov, pretty much got all of his positive shot regression in one game, scoring 2 goals on, I think, 7 shots on goal. So another smash night for the first line in Carolina. I'm looking at this money line of minus 278. And I don't know. I kind of want to go with Chicago here, but Chicago just is dead. So I'm just staying away from this one, I think. The over-under is priced at a 6 finally. We told you to jam that over on Tuesday.
That was
I still
one of
think
our favorites.
Yeah, I still think the 6 is a nice over here again. Every time these teams face off, there seems to be at least 7 goals. So I'm real good taking the over at any number, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, looking at HockeyViz, and it's not always 100% accurate. HockeyViz makes it seem like Patrick Kane was on the ice for 8 total goals in that game. 2, 4, and 5, or what? 2, 4, and 6 against. One of them being on the power play. So that's an insane stat from last game that I just wanted to mention that, they're really trying to push play. They're really trying to get it going with their top guys. The one guy in this game, if you're, DFS or not, is definitely Adam Gaudette, who was on the first power play and played with, I believe, Kane. Yeah, Kane and Strome. Adam Gaudette to score, I'm trying to even find it, plus 540. It's probably is going to be your value of the night if you want to put some money on a guy to score. Is he the highest rate shooter in the world? No, but he's shown it in the past when he was on Vancouver. He was a guy that I think a lot of minimum projection, he was always right around minimum salary, actually kind of had is a little bit higher than most, but he is one tip away, and I'm guessing he's got to be in the front, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So he's one tip away from winning you some serious cash if you put $20 on that. So that's probably the best bet in this game as far as a singular prop for that. Like I said, 540. I mean, you're getting that's like defensemen that don't even play on the power play sometimes, or or power play 2 guys. So I really like that one a lot. Anything else you want to mention up the top? I think the over easy money. The Chicago side's fair enough here with that kind of insane value at plus 233, but rather just not touch it. Just put 20 to Adam Gaudette. That's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I like Alex DeBrincat shot prop. He's leading the team in shot attempts over the last 10 games. So I'm very in on him. He seems to be on a bit of a run right now. 5 goals in his last 4 games, goals in each of those. 6 shots on goal last time out. He's averaging a shade over just about 3.5 shots per game on the year against this Carolina team. So even though Carolina is a good possession squad, DeBrincat still gets his. So I think taking the over on 2.5 or even 3, some people, or you might find a 3 just to sort of get those odds boosted a little bit. I do like DeBrincat a whole lot from the Chicago's side. I will side with everything you said on Adam Gaudette. He's one of my favorite DFS minimum salary plays on the entire night. So I do like that take.
I'm just going to say that really quick, briefly. You might need it. I know the lineup that I've already started with while we were kind of doing other podcasts was oh boy, minimum salary need. Gaudette's right there. Perfect. There he is.
Yep. So, that's just sort of the Chicago side. On the Carolina side, I feel like we said this last time too, the Carolina first line, I think, is the one you want to be stacking up. I don't know that I'll do it like DFS, but I'm not really looking to sort of try and guess on Nature's night at 5,700. I don't really trust him as far as shot props or anything go. And even Vinny Trocheck just doesn't really seem necessary. Just take Svechnikov, take Aho, take Dougie, shot props, DFS, anything else. It just doesn't seem like there's any need. Those are the guys on this squad. And as they go, the team goes. So yeah, you could see some, fluke nights from Jordan Stahl or Vinny Trocheck, and they're in great spots, but I'm not really one to sort of take the chances on those guys when they're such more solid contributors on the first line in Carolina, which means I'm not that different from the field. So any other thoughts here on this one?
No, I think that the obvious is Dougie and DeBrincat for the overs, and those are don't get cute with it. That seems really good. So we can move on. We'll move over to the Rangers at the Bruins. The Rangers, a back-to-back. They'll be without Panarin. I highly doubt they're without Buchnevich. I mean, he did kind of throw a fist stick at Mantha, but there's no way they're going to suspend him after not suspending Wilson. So he should be back. So looking at their lines is going to be real jumbled and kind of a mess. But against the Bruins, who, I mean, it's a 5.5 over under. I think that's actually pretty fair. Georgiev probably in net and probably Tuukka Rask. For the Bruins, not a huge interest for me. Like I said, I kind of shade the under. I don't want to kind of either bet either side in this because I think it could be a bit of a toss-up. The Bruins are, I think, a nice little favorite here, but I'm not sure if I want to take it at 205. I'd probably rather try to find a prop that I like. Zibanejad has been super hot shooting the puck. He should see a huge roll again. I don't think he hit a shot prop at 3.5. I think he ended up with just 3. So that was a little bit underwhelming. But
Zibby's actually been at 2.5 lately. Depending on the book you look at.
Yeah,
he's seen his line drop a little bit. So anyway, that doesn't really matter because number's a number. But
so what are your thoughts overall on this game?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't really want to chase this Rangers side. I mean, they should have been as fired up for, Wednesday night as any game on the year. And they pretty much just let Washington walk over them, the scoreboard at least, TJ Oshie and all that. It just wasn't a great look from them. Look, they're without Artemi Panarin. He's the guy who's, dragged them through a lot of the season. They were without him for a stretch and they weren't very good. They were, he came back and they went on a bit of a run. So unless Zibanejad's really going to carry this team, which, I just don't really see it. I think they're pretty much just a team that I'm, removing from my consideration for the last few days of the season. On the Boston side, I think Pasternak's real interesting. I mean, he didn't have the crazy shot on goals last game, but he did pick up 2 points against the Devils. And that's coming, he played 6 games and only had 2 points in those 6 games while he was shooting the puck. So there was a bit of regression coming for Pasta. I think the shots will come and I think the points will be there for him. I'm not really worried about him. What I really like about Pastrnak is he's a point per game player and you are never going to find him at lower ownership on a 6-game slate because of, McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews, and even Carolina. There are so many other ways to go. And I think Pastrnak is certainly a guy that I really like in tournaments on DraftKings. And I really like his shot prop, just taking him to hit 4 shots, should be right around even money. Like it just seems to me my preferred way to bet this game, unless you want to do something maybe like the Bruins and the under. But I don't know. I don't really feel great about that because I like the Bruins, but probably not as much as, the -200 line indicates. So that's just sort of where I'm thinking. I'm looking to David Pastrnak from this game. Any of the depth pieces in Boston interest you? I know we have a number of options down there, and we are going to need some value, on the slate in general. Any of these sort of long shot goal guys, stand out to you in any way?
Hold on, I'm trying to look at the one that I was thinking of. I doubt it's that good. And Nick Ritchie plus 310. He was on the first power play last game, so it's not the worst thing you could do in the world. We've seen the rate shooting from him being fine. The second power play unit actually, I think, is pretty solid now with Taylor Hall. So Coyle and Smith were on that. Coyle only saw 13 minutes, but Craig Smith, what are his odds? Are they not on 255? It's kind of a toss-up. I mean, I think Ritchie would make the most sense there. Just because we've seen the rate shooting that you'd want to see from taking a guy at that kind of a range. So that's probably the only one. And I'm not that strong on it. I'd rather just kind of move on.
Yeah. We do have Jake. Nothing extreme. I was maybe thinking about Jake DeBrusk because he's come back to a 4th line role, but he's 2,600 and I don't know, Jake DeBrusk should not be
why?
I don't know, man. I guess Taylor Hall really just stole his job, but he's certainly a guy that I'm just keeping an eye on. And then Craig Smith, the other, he's just a real solid, limited minutes, but real high shot rate. So always a guy who could really blow the top off of any slate. So I like him as a value saver as well. So let's wrap things up there and head on over to the Devils at Islanders. The Islanders minus 240 favorites coming off of back-to-back losses against the Michael Hauser-led Buffalo Sabres. The Islanders looked okay in those games. A lot of it was just sort of, goaltending. They put up a ton of shots, don't get me wrong. But they've been showing some weaknesses, especially defensively, that I kind of like the over on this game at 5.5. I'm not quite that bold to go Devils pull the road upset in, a Kyle Palmieri revenge game or anything, but I do think there will be goals here. So give me the over on 5.5. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the over is very fair. I would be shocked if Barzal isn't back in action in this one. Wasn't hurt or anything. They just kind of sat him. So I'm interested to see what the lines end up shaping out to be. I've been a huge fan of Bavillier. I know I mentioned it. He was one of my kind of cover boys in the last podcast, and he did not disappoint. I think 7 shots on goal and a goal there. Just looked freaking awesome. Absolute, just another jam play, I think, on DraftKings again versus the Devils. His price does not reflect. Pulock did see some power play time, which was, again, what I was hoping for, and they were staples of a pretty nice night over on DraftKings for me. Ben Pulock had a goal, which, again, it's one of our favorites. It's always been. He has such a great shot, and when he uses it in a game, sometimes those shots come in bunches. So that's huge value on this slate, is the Islanders in general. If we get any confirmation of Barzal being in at 5.3, I think that's a really nice value piece. And to score, he's plus 195, which is the 4th best odds. I just don't think that's correct. So you could probably talk me into that. Bavillier plus 205. Still think it's a good bet there as well. And then Jack Hughes 370. Geesh. I just don't have a lot of time for picking New Jersey guys against the Islanders. So
yeah, I mean, the thing about New Jersey is that they do have some guys who are contributing. Like Sharon Govich at plus 320, he's been playing he's been playing real well. Sharangovich, that's right, your boy.
I say it right.
So he just sort of seems like I don't even call him point chasing, because he almost reminds me of just it's weird. He kind of reminds me of Kyle Palmieri when he was alongside Hughes and Taylor Hall, Heischer and Taylor Hall, that year. Sharon Govich is just really taking advantage of Jack Hughes creating space offensively, and he's just capitalizing on it. And, it's a play on DraftKings where he's already been priced up to sort of account for his recent run, where he has 5 goals in his last 4 games, or 5 games, excuse me. But it's just plus 320 seems a little bit long, especially because I like the over here. It does seem like the Hughes line has been generating a lot lately. So that's where I'm looking. Any other sort of value pieces? I know we have a Josh Bailey or whatever on the Islanders who's been productive. But anything else there that you wanted to mention?
I think that the one thing to mention is the Devils defense. It is
what defense?
If you have any group chats, you want to play a quick game of try to name as many starting defensemen on the Devils from last game. I pretty much have it up. I could have it up in 1 second here. The guys that saw the most minutes are obviously Severson. He's a fine player. Ryan Murray, Will Butcher, Connor Carrick, Kevin Ball, and Matt Tennyson were the top 6. That is just at least 3 or 4 guys that are potentially sub NHL guys, which I don't know if any of these players are inherently a great DFS play. Butcher was on the first power play unit, so if you are stacking it, I think that has some sense to it at 3,800, but I think Pulock's such a better play for just a couple hundred more. But the reason I bring that up is because the Islanders could really pump a bunch of goals on them. And that wouldn't shock me at all. So I think that value on the Islanders is really strong here on this DFS slate with Matthews and McDavid.
Yeah, for sure. That's it's tough defensively for them, but just in terms of value, these sort of injuries are where you got to look to uncover, ways to fit in these massive studs. surprisingly cheap is Kyle Palmieri. Like, I mean, 3,300 is just absurd. So,
I don't get
I mean, like, there are a lot of value pieces in this game. So it does seem like a spot I will be just, sprinkling in some plays from this game across my lineups at DFS. So, any lean on the money line? We didn't really talk much about that. The Islanders at -240. Any interest in like a puck line or anything like that here?
I would do the Islanders puck line rather than. I just would rather do it. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
I don't know. -240 or just get them at a goal and a half. I mean, why not? Right? Get the empty netter. They're a good defensive team. Why not? So
sure.
We can move over to the Sabres at the Penguins, which, man, the books just not really giving the Sabres any respect. They're plus 293 against. I still think a pretty good Pittsburgh team, and I'm not going to bet it. I never bet for the Sabres or against the Sabres. It's not my thing. Maybe next year when I'm going to games again, I'll get a little courageous after a couple courage pops and put some money on it for fun. But as of right now, no, thank you. I'm just going to stay away from that. I just jam the over. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I was actually feeling the under on this one, and almost not because of Michael Hauser or anything, but like
Calder Cup winner, Michael Hauser, as I call him.
Did he actually win a Calder Cup?
No. Oh, I meant Calder Trophy.
Calder Trophy.
Oh my god! Damn. No, he's only played in the ECHL. Like,
that's what I thought. I was like,
I said the wrong thing.
Okay,
that was me.
No, all good. So like this game. Obviously, you have to like the Penguins because, what the Sabres are doing. We saw it happen with Pavillier last night. Like, he put up 7 shots on goal, scored a goal, and the Sabres still won. Like, it's just one of those things where they're playing such an up-tempo pace that, like, I just think that either goalie is in a great spot. So that's sort of where my initial lean is. And then thinking about the over-under, it's like, do I really think that the Crosby line sort of takes the lid off of things? Like, not really. I like Malkin a good amount, now that he's back from injury. But it's nothing that I think really makes me think like, oh, I can't, I need them to get like 4 goals or whatever, because I don't see the Sabres scoring here, honestly. So that's just sort of why I'm on the under more than not. Starting with the Sabres side, though, Anders Bjork playing on the first line with Sam Reinhart and Victor Olofsson. Like, I know Jeff Skinner's had a rough year, but Anders Bjork, really? So what are your thoughts there? And, what are your thoughts on his 2-goal game for the Sabres last time?
I mean, is it a fluke? I wouldn't say it's a fluke or it's like completely unobtainable for him to do it again, playing with those guys. The one reason why I would say there's a pros and cons to Anders Bjork playing him in DraftKings and maybe even taking him to score. The pro is that he's going to get the minutes. The minutes are going to be there. They have been consistently, and I can't imagine they break that top line that looked so freaking good. That's pro number one. Is you could see 18 to 20 minutes. Con is that his rate shooting has never really been there, and 3 shots on goal might be his right around his ceiling, at least at this point in his career. So that's kind of the trade-off you're going to get with him, but there's no reason not to do it. If you need the guy at 2,700, we already mentioned a couple punts. We might get to a couple more. It's fine, but I really would rather just like put, a little bit of money on this to score and move on. I don't know who's going to end up making the cut in my DraftKings lineup. Yeah. And the guy that's just a touch worse is Tage Thompson still. And I just think that he has a much better chance of actually scoring, like at a more of a consistent level. Like if I was going to put money on both of them every single night to score at the end of the year, which could be a fun little way of doing things, Tage is just a better like player to score a goal than Bjork, even though he's at a much better line, which is why it gives him a touch of an edge. But they're like at least evens the playing field. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, I don't have any arguments with that. If you are in on Anders Bjork being a pass first guy, Reinhardt's been off the charts in terms of shooting. So
Bjork maybe find his power play run. By the way, Tage does. Bjork doesn't.
Right. So the fact that Sam Reinhart is just on this insane run right now, I think getting over on him at 2.5 is a good way to sort of bet on the tempo of this game without having to buy into these, really juiced up Penguins pieces. But if you had to pick one, my favorite is probably Evgeny Malkin. Like he came back from injury, had 3 points in 2 games against the Flyers, and also had 6 shots across those 2 contests. So, it seems like he's back. They didn't rush him back too soon or anything. So I think he's in a real nice spot to keep things going in my estimation. But anything else before we move on to the last 7 o'clock game?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. I think we caught most of the news and notes. I can't really think of anything else. So yeah, why don't we move over to the Montreal back-to-back Canadiens after a tough loss to the goalie I played in DraftKings, Anton Forsberg, and the Ottawa Senators playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are playing well. They have all season. This game kind of starts and ends with Austin Matthews. He is, over the past 10 been one of the, if not, I think actually maybe the best high Corsi per 60 player in the NHL. Just unbelievably good at
only
everything.
83 shot attempts in those 10 games, ho-hum, doesn't matter.
Not a big deal.
He's ridiculous.
I would say he's a mortal lock in DraftKings for me, but I could end up getting talked out of it. The one note going into this game is, there's a couple notes. Let's get to the first one. The lines with Thornton, Matthews, and Marner, Galchenyuk, Tavares, and Nylander. Hyman, Nash, and Brooks all were out. Hyman, though, kind of closer to return than maybe we expected. The main thing, though, is that Rasmus Sandin ended up practicing in the first power play unit, which was Matthews and Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and then, like I said, Rasmus Sandin. So not Morgan Riley. Rasmus Sandin comes in at a nice reduced price of $3K on DraftKings. Hasn't really had good rate stats all season. He's played 8 games, 7 shots on goal, 7 blocks. So not even averaging 1 per in either category. He's never had over 1 shot on goal in a game. Doesn't help his cause much, but at $3K, if you get, 3 shots plus blocks and an assist or 2, he could definitely work out for you. And we were talking really high on Bramstrom for Ottawa, who ends up getting 3 assists. So
close.
Why is it not coming to me?
You tried to put an M in his
Brandstrom.
Yes.
A guy that goes on you never know, right? Sometimes taking those cheap defensemen work out, and this is a case where I think you might need to go cheap at defense on DraftKings. But Matt, what say you on this game as a whole? I'm kind of diving into the weeds before we even get to the base level of Toronto minus 190 and Montreal plus 162.
Yeah, so there's an interesting level of urgency to this game. Now that Montreal just completely failed to seal basically slam the door in Calgary's face. It does seem like Calgary might blow a winnable game against Winnipeg, which could make all this irrelevant. But Calgary at the current moment is 2 games in hand. With a win, they would only be 8 points back. So theoretically, Montreal should still be gunning for this W. But man, they do not look good right now. Getting just stomped by Ottawa, not a good look for them. So I'm in on Toronto at minus 190 here. It just seems like Toronto is still playing for something. Matthews is still playing for, basically his insane goal pace. Like, the more goals he scores, the more historical the season becomes, honestly, just because of, he's on pace basically for a 65 goal season, an 82 game season, something like that. It's just ridiculous the way he's scoring goals. And it's coming through just absurd shot volume. And I don't think that Montreal will be able to stop him, particularly if Shea Weber continues to miss games down the stretch here. So it's just an area where I'm thinking Toronto should be in the echelon of, maybe not quite Pittsburgh at minus 360, but in the Carolina range of like minus 250. I would probably still side with Toronto there. So give me the Toronto puck line, bump that up to about plus 135. Because I think Toronto just lays another hammer down on this Montreal team, and just takes care of business here easily as they sort of coast into the playoffs and wrap up the number 1 seed in the division. So that's sort of my overall sense of this game. While you got into some of the specifics, but anything else you wanted to add here?
Who did Jake Allen start in that right for Montreal against Ottawa? Am I losing my mind?
I actually don't know.
While we're looking that up, because that would get Kane and Primo in that.
Yep, Allen started. You're right.
Yeah, probably. So that even helps the Toronto side.
Primo.
Keith Primo. Kane and Primo. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So I think that would even boost Toronto's odds even a little bit more, and maybe the books aren't quite seeing that yet. So Yeah, definitely like that take a lot. I can't really think of any other new. Oh, the one note that we had on Montreal was it looked like Josh Anderson didn't bump up to that top line with Suzuki and Toffoli. Maybe we'll get confirmation on that, but that's something that we're assuming, I guess, at this point. They were getting, kind of pumped by Ottawa, so probably want to make a change. But that line would, potentially correlate on the power play. I'm going to wait till tomorrow, check out the Hockey Biz, check out I doubt they skate, but check out before the game's at 7, before lock. And that could be a really savvy take against Toronto, who gives up a lot against. That's going to be a super low owned, like, top line. But we'll get to the last game of the night. We have a, 6 in the Vancouver Edmonton, which I think they hit on both over 6s in the past 2. Actually, did they?
No, they only had 5 last time.
Oh my God, because Vancouver can't score. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So here we are, Vancouver and Edmonton. Seems like every team that plays Vancouver scores at least 4. So I'll just let you get started with this one. I don't want to go crazy again starting this game off. So are you jamming Edmonton at minus 250?
Yeah, I am. And, here's the thing. Connor McDavid has the points race locked up, 93 to Leon Draisaitl, 75. The goals race, he's down by 8 to Austin Matthews. Connor McDavid could easily say, hey, I want to win the Rocket this year. And he could go out and try and score 4 goals. Like they are literally going to just let him do whatever he wants. They will probably pay Vancouver to pull their goalie so that McDavid can get more points. It's just one of those things where his pace down the stretch here is just otherworldly. And, I just don't think Vancouver stops him ever. They've played the slate 100 times. I think I think McDavid and Matthews too, but I think that those 2 guys are just by far the best plays on this entire slate. And McDavid to me is, head and shoulders, I think, above Matthews just because of how condensed it is on just McDavid. Matthews, theoretically, William Nylander could have 4 points and, that line could do whatever. And Matthews could just coast. Edmonton's not doing that, So, for me, it's the Edmonton money line, maybe a puck line, but I'm not too about that. But I just want the McDavid player props, man. And I want the Draisaitl player props because when Draisaitl plays alongside McDavid, he scores goals and he takes way more shots than when he's without McDavid at 5-on-5. So to me, it's just the best of both worlds. I'm jamming these Edmonton boys in and probably going Tyson Barrie as well. Maybe leaving off Puljujarvi, going Barrie, similar salaries. And I just much prefer the power play matchup to, try to guess Puljujarvi's spike nights.
I mean, Evan Bouchard saw a run with that first unit.
He did.
I don't know. Yeah. How much you're reading into that. But I mean, Evan Bouchard after 2 months, a 2-month hiatus, where I think some people took down some GPPs with some Evan Bouchard stacks. He was back, 1 goal, 2 shots, 2 blocks, 20 points. That's been his ceiling. He's 3,200. I think it's a real nice savings. So, I think you just talk me into just playing those 3 together. Yeah, and if you do it that way, that gives you a chance of getting at least Matthews in there. And
yeah,
I really want that.
I mean, what's clinically insane? Darnell Nurse plus 195 to score a goal. You mentioned Evan Bouchard getting power play run. That's because Tyson Barrie is with the first unit. But Evan Bouchard was with the quote unquote second unit, which is basically just, getting Chiasson and Barrie out of there and replacing them with usually it's
a lot of shots on goal.
I know he does.
So,
but how many times is Darnell Nurse getting breakaways? He's literally gotten multiple breakaways in the last week. And I don't know how it keeps happening, but he's a freaking defenseman priced at less than plus 200 to score a goal without any power play certainty. It is, I mean, come on. Over on FanDuel where I can actually bet the no to it, I'm hoping it's sort of similar. And something's got to give soon, right? And, of course, Darnell Nurse will score, he'll get the busted play, empty net goal or something and, just screw me. But it's just one of those things really? This is what we're doing for fun where we're betting on Darnell Nurse to score goals as a defenseman. I just don't see it. So that was just my one sort of rant related to this game. But otherwise, Draisaitl, McDavid, lock it in. What are you looking at from the Vancouver side of things? Because, theoretically, Vancouver could score.
Yeah, and I really think that it's going to go through the top 4 or 5 guys here. And Niels Hoglander is one of my kind of becoming one of my favorite players. He gets the shot bonus in the last time out against Edmonton, gets the assist. The one knock on him is they did take him off that first power play unit, but I think he could be right back up there again. Playing with Miller and Besser is just so good. Getting around 20 minutes of ice time, he is just kind of everything you want in a DFS asset down at 3,600, which is Pavilion game money. But those two right there, I think I'll end up having both. There's such good values on this slate. There's really the only thing is the power play usage, like I mentioned, but he actually did get some run with the top unit. He kind of mixed in a bit, so it might just have been a situation where he was at the end of a long shift and maybe missed some time. But I'm hoping, they get back from Pearson.
They tried Tanner Pearson there, and he's been there for part of the season and whatnot. But let's just say Pearson did not have one of his best games. Hoglander obviously had a real strong game given his shot production and putting up a point. And certainly, if you trust the announcers, I tend to trust the announcers because they see games very similarly to the coaches, just like, knowing who's hustling or whatever. Like, sure. Hoglander had a great game from that regard. He was everywhere. So I would not be surprised to see Hoglander keep his cushy role in the top 6 and also get a fair run with the power play 1 in this game, because they they just gotta run the kids out. They gotta, make sure that they're getting experience for next year. And, it behooves them for Niels Hoglander to be a guy who can actually take that next step when they get Pettersson back and everything like that, and keep a, competitive team into next season. So yeah, I agree. Hoglander's where I'm going for sure on the Vancouver side. There's the 6 games. I mean, that was pretty quick. Do you want to recap a couple of our favorite bets for the listeners and then talk about a couple of DFS stacks before we get out of here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that any of these money lines are real tough. Like, I think every one of them -1, everyone but one game has at least a -200 or worse, which is crazy. So I think, with that being said, the Islanders puck line is probably my favorite of all the games. I know some people could say, well, they lost 2 in a row and there seems to be some turmoil, and they're not, like, they'll right the ship. And with that Devils defense, especially if they go back to Wedgwood, which I kind of expect, they could give up a nice bushel to the Islanders, who, might have a fired up Barzell. I like that a lot narratively too, with Zajac and Palmieri. I like that, just adding a little bit of zest and a cherry on top to it. So that's one of my favorites right off the cuff.
And my favorite money line is the Leafs. They're maybe putting some training wheels on Sandin to see how he runs the first power play and all that, but I don't think that means they're taking this game lightly, so to speak. Like, I think they're literally just saying, everything else will be normal, like the time on ice and everything else. Like, they're getting Matthews his run, I think, given his, his goal scoring and all that. And I think they literally just want to give Sandin a chance, and then they'll probably put Riley back there for the playoffs. So give me Toronto -190. I don't really see why they are the quote unquote least favored home team on this slate. We just saw Montreal put up a giant egg, and they've just not been playing very well as of late. I've never really liked their underlying numbers. Even, it's been a tough go, honestly, for the last little bit for Montreal. So this will be just another chance for me to pick on them, I guess, and hopefully be paid off for it. Favorite player prop, is that where you're going with?
For shot props, I think there's 2 or 3 that are really interesting. Dougie, Leon, I think Reinhardt, and DeBrincat. Those are kind of the 4 that to get started with. If the Zibanejad had 2.5, and if you can find decent odds on that, that's super strong as well.
Yeah, I will second the Draisaitl. I like him to score a goal. It's like -110. You might be able to shop around, find it at plus money, +110. That would be excellent. I really like him to score another goal here. And then just one other thought, Evgeny Malkin, like, take his shot prop. I think he's going to hit 3. I think he certainly has, the sort of 5-shot upside looking for in DFS. And a lot of the center talk will, be focused around, rightly so, around McDavid and Matthews, and then figuring out at wing defense, what you do, meaning that guys like Malkin and Aho and Tavares will just sort of be lost in the shuffle on this slate. So that's a couple of thoughts there. If you want full DFS talk, we will give you a sampling of our top stacks. But we do have the Morning Skate podcast, a show focused just on DFS with an episode for this Thursday slate. So be sure to check that out. Spend some more time with DJ and I as we talk about Thursday. But for these loyal Mayo Media Network listeners, what is your favorite stack or two on this night?
I mean, the one that I'm probably going to jam in and I'm not going to change is McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bouchard. Just because I want to get that savings on Bouchard to get me enough to get Matthews. That's probably going to be the one I have for sure on. I know on the morning skate you had Leon, McDavid, and Barry. I'm going Bouchard. I'm going with it. Shot King, Bouchard. He's going to hit the bonus. Why not?
Good old Shot King. That's what they call him. All right. It's obviously tough with 6 games to not repeat ourselves or whatever, but the Chicago, the Adam Gaudette value that he offers, I think is really useful in fitting in some of these studs. And what's really unfortunate about it for me is that lastly, I was on Gaudette playing with Patrick Kane, and he actually stepped into the first power play. And I'm like, oh my God, I saw this early. I'm going to print like Adam Gaudette's going to score, do all this. He didn't do anything. He played 18 minutes. I think he had a shot on goal. So, with these small chances something changes there, I'm actually looking at it though, like I have confirmation that he's, top line, top power play. He's minimum salary. And I don't think people will take even a second look at him. So I like getting Adam Gaudette and stacking him up, with his power play mates, Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, Duncan Keith even's on that power play. Like those guys, they might not get there, 70% of the time, but when they do, they have some real slate winning upside. So that's where I'm looking in tournaments first off.
I'm going to take a real cheap last one here. I took a different angle on this on the Morning Skate pod, but just kind of looking at everything again, depending on what the Islanders do. And as I mentioned, they could definitely change it up, but Palmieri and Wahlstrom correlated on the power play. It was with Leddy, where I know some people have been playing him just because of the value he gives you. And he is just a okay player overall. But he had 6 shots on goal against Buffalo, which was, it's the one-off. He's not going to do that super often. That's, hitting the shot bonus, but he would fit in really nicely with that. I mean, that is a 3,400 Palmieri, a 900 Wahlstrom, and a 3,100 Leddy. And that's going to give you the ability to get in that, McDavid, Matthews, Bouchard, and Draisaitl that I want to get. So Wahlstrom, if they just repeated their last games, Wahlstrom had 4 shots on goal and no points. Palmieri had 2 shots on goal and no points, and Leddy had 6 shots on goal and no points. So if they could just do that again, but get the points, you could print fat stacks of Benjamins.
All right. So, one other sort of, I'm going to go a little off the wall here. I mean, I already gave you the Chicago, so, you guys know the really good place, but I will get creative with some Montreal. Romanov is a guy who stepped in filling the ice time of Shea Weber. And unfortunately, Petrie sort of soaked up a lot of the power play role. But Romanov went up to 3,300 against Ottawa and, was coming off a 13-minute night against these Leafs. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that. But he goes out, and plays 20 minutes against Ottawa. He's going to be on the second power play with guys like Cole Caulfield, even Josh Anderson. There is a viable path to stacking up on some cheap Montreal guys and saying, if Matthews is going to get there, he needs Montreal to push them. He needs Montreal to put up 3 or 4 goals so that Matthews can go out and get a hat trick, win 5-4 or something. So I do kind of like, getting the value on a guy like Romanov and, Caulfield, Anderson, even Deneau, like his, Caulfield center at 5-on-5, they're all cheap. They're all solid values. And I think they do sort of correlate well with like a game stack almost. So that's one area that I will continue to sort of ponder. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some of the Montreal line changes coming into the Thursday night slate because we'll get those 30 minutes for the game and we might get some real fun combinations to work with in tournaments. So let's end the show right there, DJ. Anything else before we go?
No, definitely. I mean, thanks for listening. First year coming to an end. I know it's the cat in the background there. Good luck, cat, of course. First season coming closer and closer to the end. So thanks for everyone who either, started with us and stuck with us or joined along the way. Definitely appreciate it. Definitely excited to give you even more coverage in the playoffs, which is some of my favorite DFS time of the year. I think that really can be exciting. What in the world is your cat doing?
There's a toy hanging.
I saw like something moving too. I'm like, what is he? Is he trying to play hockey in the background there? But yeah, no, thanks for everyone. Thank you to Prize Picks for jumping in and sponsoring the show. It means a lot to us. I know it was like we've been doing podcasts since we were in our college dorm rooms, and we finally, for the first time ever, saw a sponsor. That was really cool for us. I mean, you guys might not really care much on it, but it might be something to us. So
yeah,
who cares? What do you think? This is our podcast.
It's awesome. Also a video show. And by the way, if you're not on the video show, you just saw my cats in the background.
Just all of a sudden waving around
having a freaking psychotic episode. So, yeah. So, I'll echo everything you say. The support's been awesome. We really appreciate you guys, keeping in touch, reaching out to us via Twitter. And of course, we'll be back for the playoffs. So, with all of that said, thanks, Prize Picks. Good luck on Thursday, everybody, and we will see ya.